today we have There's Nothing Like the Sun by Edward Thomas. So I was looking for a nice autumn poem to read and to discuss today. I went through quite a lot of autumny poetry, poesy. I found that one. I thought that's interesting. Something interesting is going on there. And let's discuss that one. And I opened it and turned out that it's a war poem again. You can't really say it's a war poem by looking at it, but it is. And somehow it enters into a conversation with the previous poem. So let's have a look at it and let's see how it works and what is happening there. There's Nothing Like the Sun by Edward Thomas. There's nothing like the sun as the year dies, kind as it can be, this world being made so, to stones and man and beasts and birds and flies, to all things that it touches, except snow, whether on mountainside or street or town. The south wall warms me. November has begun. It never shone the sun as fair as now, while the sweet lust left dancens from the bough with spangles of the morning storm drop down, because the starling shakes it, whistling what once swallows sang, that I have not forgot. That there is nothing too like March's sun, like April's or July's or June's or May's or January's or February's great days. August, September, October and December have equal days, all different from November. No day of any month, but I have said, or if I could live long enough, should say, there's nothing like the sun that shines today. There's nothing like the sun till we're dead. Something happy and optimistic for a new year. So what's your impression, comments, ideas?
A nice little poem, and as I read it, I might just assume it's something about the sunshine, the sun. Obviously, when November is mentioned, I think of the end of the year, and apart from understanding it as a purely, apart from understanding it literally, we can also easily connect the end of the year with the end of somebody's life cycle, if you wish.
Yeah, especially as he mentions it.
Yes, and of course, all the other months mentioned there might be attributed to specific times in somebody's life. So it's obvious. The poem is more or less obvious in a good sense when we look at it literally, because there's nothing in it that couldn't be taken literally. It also makes sense when we think of it as a metaphor for our lives. And of course, when I'm through reading the poem, I look at the title, I look at the author, and I see he died quite young.
Yeah.
in the year 1917, and I can't escape the fact that it's war poetry, and one might easily assume that he was killed in action just before the end of the First World War, something like that. So that's the initial impression.
Yeah. So how does it change it when you know it's a war poem written by somebody who was in it? So you can read it literally like it's about nature. You can read it like a metaphor of one's life. How does it change if you know it's a war poem? Does it change anything?
I think it does.
How?
It does simply because we might discuss death and how long. We might discuss death. We might discuss either our wish to be dead or our wish to see more of the sun. But this discussion for us, well, I'm speaking for me is purely theoretical. To the man there who writes there's nothing like the sun, the risk to his life is very much real. And it's quite possible, the possibility of being killed, of losing one's life, is a real one, not a theoretical one. So it's not just somebody's stanzas or lamentations about how little life has to offer. It's
little.
He says life has much to offer, especially to those who know they're about to die. And of course, even though he was thinking about himself, but he was also thinking perhaps of all the other fellow soldiers who fell in the war, or victims to the war. And then this nice poetic discussion of the sunshine, spring, summer followed by autumn, followed by November, in late autumn, becomes much more, well, I would say a much more, it gives a much more powerful message, sort of.
Yeah, because we know it's real. It's not just sitting in your study and thinking some abstractions. So he is our guide. He comes close to death, which is real death and not just some metaphor or abstraction. And he brings us there. He takes us by a hand and brings us close, because that's the only true space.
Yeah, and that's probably just to continue on to follow up on that idea. We might be sitting in the comforts of our studies. We might be unhappy about some things that annoy us, but it's very likely that this poem was written somewhere in the trenches, or just before combat or after combat. He probably wrote it and rewrote it, or he might have thought about it, and then it was just like a single flash which provides you with the words. But again, one knows that this poem was written under the circumstances that not every poet faces when discussing life and death, when discussing beautiful nature and the sun. It really creates quite. I think there's something noble about it, because he doesn't say, well, I'm going to die, we're all going to die, it's highly likely we're going to die, something like that. never mentions death until the last, the first and the last line, and otherwise it might be seen as a very happy poem. So you have to be there has to be something strong in you when you can write happy lines, knowing with certainty that the risk of dying, the risk of never seeing the sun again is quite high.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'm too.
No, it's just when I turn on Skype, there's a light which is shining just in my eye. I just think how to get rid of it, which is next to the camera. So I can't look into the camera because I've been doing it for a few days with the Skype lessons. So now it kind of hurts. Oh well, think of something. Okay. So what happens? I think just a little piece of paper would do the trick. My little piece of paper. The trick is not to disturb the camera, because that would not be fun. Okay, that should be. Is it okay? Is it okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Who invents those diabolical devices of torture to shine a light into your eye for hours? Ugh. Well, anyway, so as we read the poem, you may get the impression of separation, let's say. You may think, if you're in the trenches, then you're facing death, then you know that death is coming to you. But it's no difference. There's no difference. You're facing death as you sit in your study. Oh, that's what we must realize, because in our mind it's two separate places. Oh, that's a place of danger and death, and that's a place of safety and comfort. There's no place of safety and comfort. You never know what may happen to you. A crocodile materializes through a vortex, cosmic vortex, and bites your head off. You never know. You drink your tea and there's a fly in it, and you choke on the fly in your tea. You don't know, have no idea. So, as we read the poem, we must remember, we must realize that we are in no different situation. War or no war, trenches, study, makes a difference.
Yeah. Maybe it's just because the war circumstances make that fact very obvious. And again, if you believe in chances, in things that happen by chance, the war makes it quite clear. So there's a chance for you to come out alive. There's a chance for you to die, and as you see other people dying, you realize that this chance is very much there. Whenever you and again, obvious by some other events in our lives, by some relatively young people collapsing into and being in a state of a coma after they drink tea, or some sort of you're crossing. That's happened to many of us. I know several people who have this experience, which is not very dangerous. So you are crossing the street, and then the car pulls out of nowhere, and it either manages to stop just before it hits you, or you manage to somehow escape the car. Yeah, and then you understand that your life would be different.
Mm-hmm.
And you were so quick. So it's, it's everywhere, as you say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So maybe we have a few lives and we just spend them without noticing all those accidents where you have nearly been killed. Maybe you have been killed there, but you have a spare life. But you don't have an infinity of spare lives. Maybe you have like cats. Maybe you have 3 or 9 or 7 or 5. You don't know. Okay. So as we look at that poem, as I said, it really looks like it's in conversation with the previous one. It also has kind sun, the kindness of the sun. It has snow in it, same as the previous poem, until this morning, and the snow, previous one, and here, touches except snow. And we have, what else we have here? France, knowing. Yeah, and nature, and the sun. So maybe they knew each other's work. Maybe it was a conversation. I can't really say. I'm not that much into war poetry to tell you, but it certainly seems like there's some connection. Maybe it's a quantum connection when they work in the same field and they have the same energies, fluctuations, maybe. But when you're out there, apparently, you enjoy those kind of obvious, kind of little things like sunlight on your face. All that little things that you've been taking for granted all that while. So let's have a look at it. Let's have a closer look. There's nothing like the sun as the year dies. So the first line, and already we have nothing. There's nothing. You can just stop there. There's nothing. Like the sun as the year dies. And immediately we have the kind of big cosmic image. We have death, we have year, we have the sun, all these, something bigger than one human being, one human life, yeah. And they all die. If something as big as year can die, yeah. And especially as you say, we can easily connect it with the idea of one's life. So on one hand, there's nothing. At the same time, there is the sun, and the sun is there to guide you, to help you, to touch you, maybe, as the year dies. Then again, why would you think about the sun as the year dies? There's nothing like some tea when the year dies. Yeah, again, sun is ever present. And the sun is what you are turning to. Not other people, but the sun. Kind as it can be, this world being made so. So that's a whole philosophical statement which kind of makes settings for reality. Yeah, because he could have said, oh no, it's a brutal world, it's a wild world, you're alone, you're sent out there to die, you have no support, no help. But here, same as in Wilfred Owen's poem, the sun is kind, very kind.
Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily mean you are not alone, because you might be alone among crowds of people and only enjoy a conversation with the sun.
Yeah, it's like, who's that guy who wrote the seagull story? Richard Bach. So he has a story which is the sky is everywhere or something like that. He says it doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter if you are in the deepest dungeon or if you are in the middle of a big crowd. The sky is above you and it's everywhere. Wherever you go, it's above you, it's with you, you can feel it. So the sky or the sun. And it's kind. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's, again, very often there's another comparison that is present when we think of people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
We might say childhood and the young age are the morning, then there comes the day, and old age is evening.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's evening, you can't really see the sun. You know it's there, but you can't see it. What you can see is stars and
mm-hmm.
the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that could have appeared here when you think about the end of your life would be a moon. And
mm-hmm.
again, you can have a conversation
mm-hmm.
with the moon.
Yeah.
You can walk sometime late at night and only see the moon, no people, probably some tiny stars, and the moon,
mm-hmm.
which is big and beautiful. But interestingly, the moon is never mentioned here,
mm-hmm.
although it's often mysterious. It's often there's something about
mm-hmm.
moonlight that makes us it creates a certain kind of magic or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's expectation of something unusual that is going to happen to us. While the sun is seen in line 2 as being kind, as being friendly.
Mm-hmm.
So probably that's why you want to have the sun in your poem when you're contemplating death rather than...
Because the moon isn't kind. The moon is unpredictable. It's changing, it's unreliable. It's dead in the sense that it's like blue, white, cold. The sun is kind, and again, same as in the previous poem, we don't say, oh, the sun is powerful, the sun is mighty, the sun is strong. No, the sun is kind. And kindness is the greatest value here. As the year dies, there's nothing like kindness. Like, even if the sun can't help you, or doesn't want to help you, or can't help you, kindness still counts. Kind as it can be. Again, it's very positive. Can be. This world being made so, again, that's how you set the whole reality. You set the rules for reality. And that's what we do every day, really. How you are setting your reality, that's how it reacts, that's how it behaves. If you insist on it being dark and evil, it will be dark and evil. If you insist on it being literal and official, it will be so to you. But if you insist on it being kind, and you behave accordingly, then it will be kind to you. If you insist on reality being more than most people would expect of it, it would be so. So if you are on the Titanic, for instance, and you insist that the universe, the reality, follows normal rules, then the chances are that you just die there. If you insist on reality being more flexible, if you insist on being, I don't know, independent or powerful, then maybe you can make your own little boat. But if you insist on reality being fluent, being more less rigid than you may expect, then or something magical will happen. Maybe some eagles will come and take you away to safety. Something happens which is out of expected physical normality. It happens all the time. It just we prefer to ignore it. Like I heard such stories which cannot be explained by normal physics. So this world being made so, he says, I insist that no matter what it looks like, no matter how it seems, the world is based on kindness. Even if it seems horrible at the moment, it's not horrible. There's still kindness behind it. I'll understand it later, maybe. Maybe I'll never understand it, but I know, I trust that the reality is based on kindness. Yeah? The world being made so, and again, if you say the world being made so, what do you imply? That there's some kind of creator who made it? If it's made so, then someone made it. It didn't appear, didn't grow, it was made. And then the great creative power behind our reality, this world, is kindness, love. That is what he says here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, when you are in the trenches, your sort of point is one to judge, and you can easily forget about the sun at all, or about kindness and all that sort of things, and it probably gives more credit to our poet today that he is still capable of and willing to see the sun, to see the kindness, and when you face death, as probably you won't be just saying things because it's your duty to say things, it's your duty to play with words. You would probably prefer saying something that you are absolutely sure is true. So he's not just posing or making some. He is not pretending he likes this world. He does like it, whatever the circumstances he finds himself in.
Yeah. So he may not enjoy it. He may not like it, but he doesn't blame.
Yeah.
He knows, he trusts the sun, and he says, well, it's not the sun's fault that people can be stupid.
Yeah. And the war, the trenches, the deaths are not the only thing, not the only something that is to be found in this world. So you have to look elsewhere. You have to remember that there's much more to this world than the war and death.
And the next line also good. Kind as it can be to stones and man and beasts and birds and flies. So again, the sun shines everywhere. It doesn't say, you're a good person, I will shine for you. Or you're a nasty piece of poo, I will not shine on you. It shines everywhere, it doesn't care. It doesn't care if it's dirty, if it's clean, if it's big, if it's small. The sun is bigger than that. It doesn't go into such details. And the way he he looks at it. He doesn't say, "Oh, this kindness is only for human beings." He starts with stones. He starts with stones. Why would he start with stones?
Maybe just because most of us don't think stones to be very important. Stones are sort of pieces of dead matter. They are inanimate objects, and they are indeed objects in the sense that they don't move.
Oh, you'd be
very often
surprised.
unless they are moved.
You'd be surprised.
Well, I know something about avalanches, but
No, there are moving
other than that-
stones. There are moving stones even at night. But in general, the stones are very much alive. They just live much slower than humans, so from our perspective, they don't move. But if you watch them long enough, you may notice how they respond and how they respond to a vibration like singing. Now, stones are very much alive, maybe more alive than some humans. Maybe he says stone and man and beasts and birds and flies in the sense that stones live really long and man lives shorter lives and beasts live ever shorter lives and birds have shorter lives and flies live for a very, very short time. Maybe that's what he means. Maybe stones came like beings before man, before humans came to the planet. There were stones. Or maybe just so that we don't think we are so cool and great and special. So he doesn't start with man, he starts with stones. He says there are other beings here which are older than us, maybe wiser. Stones and man, and surely if you put two words together, they start interacting. Whether you like it or not, they start interacting. So if you put stones next to man, then stones become more human and man becomes more stony. So on one hand you have stones which become more alive, which can enter into a conversation with the sun, which are aware of the sun, or they are anyway. At the same time you have man who turn to rocks and stones, maybe in the sense of losing feelings, because stones appear to have no feelings. And then you have beasts. So man here are between stones and beasts. And you may think that at war it's hard not to become a stone or a beast. And it's important to maintain your position as a man without turning into a stone or a beast, without losing your humanity. And at the same time, here, it's natural, a man like a part of nature, not different from stones or beasts or birds or flies in the same line. But at the same time, stones and beasts start interfering with the idea of man. And birds and flies. So we leave the ground, we look at birds and tiny flies, because again, if you're at war, if you're going to die, do you often, would you think about the importance of a fly's life? I don't think so. So again, that's important. So he doesn't focus on himself or just humans. he looks at nature and he says, well, but men are important, but so are stones and little flies, insects, all kind of life, stone life.
And unlike stones or flies or birds or beasts, it's the man's fault that the war is going on. It's not the beast, whatever beastly it might be, that starts the war. These are people with their souls, with their ideas, with their intellects, who start wars, who wage wars, and who kill each other in the war in numbers that are that are much greater than the numbers of people who might be killed by, let's say, a beast or a fly that bites someone.
Yeah. And flies rhymes with dies here. So it may be also in the sense that you want to fly from there. You want to flee, you want to get away. And dies, flies, what flies? Time flies, life flies. And again, we think about flies, and it's important because it rhymes with dies. And what are flies? People are dying like flies in war. Also in great numbers.
Yes.
To all things that it touches, except snow. So again we have, same as in the previous, gently touch walking ones until this morning and this snow. We have the touch, we have snow again, same as in the other poem. And again, it's not a force. The sun isn't forcing anything or anyone. It touches, encourages, probes, maybe. To all things that it touches except snow. So the sun is kind to all things except snow. How?
The sun can melt snow. It can't melt stones. It's usually enjoyed by people. There are men and women who invite sun, who lie in the sun, and so on. Again, birds sometimes profit from the sunshine, as do the birds. So the only thing that the sun destroys is snow.
And now you think, as in the other poem, snow as in death. Snow is often connected with the idea of death.
Yes.
So what do we get in that case?
Yeah. So in that case, we might say again in direct connection with the previous poem that the sun has the capability of healing the body, of healing the soul, and it can sort of revive men who are nearly dead or dead. War. So this sort of not being kind to snow again is related to life. It's the sun is not kind to those phenomena that are devoid of life, again, when we think of snow and the way snow responds to sunshine, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen sort of in a very violent way, because melting snow is a slow process. It's dynamic, but the dynamics is really slow and gentle. So again, while the sun is not very kind to snow, it destroys snow. It does so in a gentle manner. That is that doesn't destroy the essence of snow. The water still remains, and probably it also makes melting snow, therefore make plants grow, help make some of the animals who are not here during the winter time to appear again, and so what it does is very well. It's usual, we think, but there's always something about the spring that is.
We don't talk about spring
unusual,
here.
Melting snow.
Here what we have is, again, a kind of negation. We describe it by describing the opposite. We don't say the sun kills snow. We say the sun is kind except snow, except to snow. Yeah, so we don't have, again, anything negative or violent here. We don't describe it, we don't show it. We show it by negations. So we have, again, the big image, whole nature. And then, interestingly, we separate snow. We put a wall or draw a line and we make polarity. So somehow snow is opposed to the sun. There are two opposing forces, but the sun is greater. It doesn't say that the sun destroys snow. It sounds more like snow is immune to the sun, avoids the sun. Yeah, but anyway, we have snow separated. Obviously, what we can do is just say God and death instead of sun and snow. To all things that it touches except snow. So you can't say if it doesn't touch snow, or if it's not kind to snow when it touches it, or if just nothing happens when it touches it. But we do have the opposition: light, warmth, life, and coldness, snow, death. Whether on mountainside or street of town. So again, we have kind of big picture. One hand, mountainside, somewhere out of comfort, in the nature, in the wild place, or street of town, again, human-made, narrow, logical, directed. It doesn't matter. Yeah, snow, we talk about snow here. So snow can come to you on the mountainside, can come to you on the street of town. Again, in a way, it's like it can come in a unpredictable way, wild way, or it can come in an expected, logical way. You can't hide from snow. You can't hide from snow in nature, you can't hide from snow in a town. It doesn't matter where you go, it will find you, apparently.
Yes, and as we move from line 4 to line 5 on mountainside or street of town, we do face something that is very spacious, mountainside, and something that is often walled, crowded, and sort of smallish, a street of a town.
Yeah, we have this opposition.
Yeah. So, as you say, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. But again, the poet prefers not to concentrate his attention and his reader's attention on the trenches. They are not mentioned, not even a single time. Here, he populates his poem by beasts, birds, flies, stones, men, towns, which might include stones because houses are made of stone, some sort of monuments, some Italian towns with ancient ruins or something. And it's also much more than that. There's mountain and mountainside. Is it true to say that mountains are often associated with liberty, with freedom?
Yeah, they are, because they're magical places.
They probably are.
You have them a lot in romantic poetry, like the sea, the mountains, somewhere where you're alone, you're with the forces of nature, you associate yourself with the forces of nature, and nobody understands you, you're just walking along there. Yeah, so mountains, like you say, that's something big, something again wild.
He's not glued to mountains. He's not glued to trenches. He's not glued to something which is man-made, because streets of town are obviously man-made, and mountains are not. Again, it is probably natural if you are a strong man or a strong woman to defy the circumstances, to think not of the trenches when you are in one, but to think of the freedom offered by beautiful mountains or normal life as it used to happen to you in the streets of your native town or something. So you sort of do not concentrate, you are not glued to these trenches, to these circumstances. You try you are not escaping reality, you are just showing that reality is much bigger than this little hole you find yourself in.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so mountain can be your inner mountain, and street of town again, it's somewhere inside you really. So that's like the first part, because then he looks around, he says, the south wall warms me. What's the south wall? Why does it warm him?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. The south wall, just because it's something that is located to the south, and the south is usually very warm, or maybe the south wall as opposing to the north wall, north and snow, south and happiness, warmth, sunshine.
So maybe it's just some real south wall which he knows, so he mentions it in the poem maybe. How is it warms or warns me? Maybe it warns him, apart from warming. We have now direction south. we bring south. He doesn't say the old wall or the green wall or the stone wall. It's important for him that it's the south wall.
Yeah.
So what do we have, what is the idea of south? Because east and west are easy, they're obvious, they're like sunset, sunrise, life, death, morning, evening, there's nothing too mysterious. How about south and north?
Well, you might think of people who live in the south and southern climates. They are more. They're probably more emotional. They are energetic. And everything about their lives might be seen as full of life and this joy of life.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when I imagine a typical southern countryside, I might imagine the south wall as a sort of a fence covered by these plants that make it really nice. So it's not a fence at all. It's just
we don't
a thing
think about southern countries, but we think about the south in general as a direction, because it's relative. You are here, then south is that place. You are there, then what used to be south becomes north. So in that sense, it doesn't make much sense. But we have south as a general idea of direction. What is south? So if you're facing, so we have European kind of map projection, and it's facing north. Yeah, north is up there.
Yes.
In that sense, south is somewhere behind you. So again, it's an interesting question. Why would you orient or put your map that way? Because lots of other cultures don't do that. They prefer to look south or east. Yeah, so if you face north, if you're European, you face north, then south is behind you. And south wall. Why south wall? Maybe south, the word itself, south here, is like seeking or like soul. I don't know. South wall warms me. Maybe south, like you say, is connected with warmth. Maybe. But hard to say.
With something vivid. Something that is full of life.
Mm-hmm. So, but what we have here is a wall, and apparently just one wall, just south wall. Where are other walls or other parts of building maybe? He has one wall, and the wall again is a separation. Again, we have something that separates him from death, keeps him alive. It's like a wall, which he makes, apparently.
But a wall can be a thing that separates us from, let's say, death, that protects us from something that we don't want, and
protected by separation still. So it's always about separation. It's always about separation. How do you use it is another question. Whether it's a separation to keep you safe, or whether it's a separation to limit you, or maybe it's the same.
But then you can also imagine a citadel of some sort, and a citadel wall, which protects you from the enemy, and you can be fighting the enemy. You can be you can be full of courage and fight to the very end to preserve your citadel, to defeat the enemy. So it's probably also something that is not necessarily that does not necessarily mean separation in a negative sense. It might also mean I'm withstanding something. I feel I am the master of circumstances.
It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Even if you do that, you deny this unity. You create polarities, and so you create tension. So it's very interesting, really. So what you have in the beginning, you have like a blank page of reality. Yeah. What you do, all that you need to do is to put a line. It doesn't matter how, any kind of line, like a wall. And immediately you have left, right, good, bad, south, north, yes, no. All you do is make a wall or draw a line. That's all you do. So by putting a wall in there, we already create some kind of incompleteness or separation. And again, a very strange sensation, because the south wall warms me, and it's like he's somewhere out and there's just one wall. Again, a strange place, strange situation. Not fire, not a building, not a home, not a house, not a shed, just a wall. Maybe the south wall to stop the northern wind, maybe. November has begun. So November, now we have time, we had the direction south as opposed to north. Now we have a time of year November, which is not quite, but nearly the end of the year. Moving to, again, coldness. November. Well, if you just try to feel the word November, you can say, well, it's just 9, but maybe there's something else in it. November, there's no in it, there's negation. Yeah, moving into no being, maybe. November has begun, yet never shone the sun as fair as now. So again, I know my life will end soon, likely, yet never shone the sun as fair as now.
And yes, my life, I know that my life is going to end sooner, or at least it's there's likelihoods that it might end soon. And the sun in November, if we imagine normal circumstances, doesn't shine as bright as in midsummer, but as we are now prepared together with the poets to attend to be more attentive, we manage to see how bright and warm and full of life the sunshine really is.
Yeah, the reality of death makes it fair. And again, he doesn't say, oh no, now the days are short and it's cloudy and the sun isn't bright. isn't as bright as it used to be. He doesn't say that. He says, no, as death becomes real, so does life. If your death is real, if it's not a metaphor, not an abstraction, if you know it's right behind you, then your life becomes real too. Never shone the sun as fair as now. While the sweet lost-left damsons from the bow with spangles of the morning storm drop down. Oh, that's like a funny line to me. So on one hand you can say it's, again, nature, last plums on the bough, on the tree, and they're falling down. And again, there's something bittersweet here. The damsons, the plums are sweet, but they're last ones, they're falling. At the same time, you may kind of see how maybe he refers to girls, like damsons is a funny word for plum. So maybe he means like damsels. So just sweet last-left damsels from the bow. If you're a soldier, then maybe that's what you see, maybe. And again, it's sweet because it's last left sun, last left damsels,
last left life.
And it's the more sweet, it's a sweeter. And he doesn't say, oh no, there are no plums now, just the last ugly little things left for me. Oh, he says they're sweet. Sweet last left damsons from the bow with spangles of the morning storm drop down. Just imagine how full of life, how full of poesy you must be to see it in the middle of the war. Yeah? When was it written specifically? Was it written? It doesn't really say. If he wrote it before the war, maybe, but it's on the website with the First World War poetry, so apparently it's related. Apparently, because it just has the date of first publication, it doesn't have the date. Apparently it's from that time anyway. So again, it's could be just a classical piece of poetry about nature. But given the circumstances, it makes it really deep. While the sweet last-left damsels from the bow with spangles of the morning storm drop down. Then again, we have the storm, but it's not destructive. It's again creative. It's beautiful. It makes the plums sparkle. Then again, we have the idea of death, like drop down. We have tears dropping down. We have people dropping down. So we have this again bittersweet mixture, a beauty of life and a bitterness of death and devastation of war, in that sense. The spangles of the morning storm drop down. Again, morning storm, something fresh, something nice. Maybe not nice, but something fresh, because we have word morning, which is refreshing, which is new beginnings. We have storm, but again, we don't see any destruction. We have the, on the contrary, decoration. And even those damsons drop down, not because of the storm, but because the starling shakes it, whistling what one swallow sang. again interesting. So why does it happen? Again, if you think that damsons are like people dropping down in the morning storm, because if you look at the situation cosmically, globally, then what is bigger to you, like war, in the global sense, can be like morning storm, could be, from, let's say, the galaxy's point of view, the sun's point of view, because the starling shakes it. Yeah, we have starling and we have swallows. Why do we have these birds here?
Well, swallows, as far as I understand, are the birds that are closely connected to wide spaces, the seaside and the sea. There's...
Oh, no, not necessarily. There are barn swallows who build their nests in barns and sheds and on the roof.
Okay. And, well, they also, I wonder if the swallows are the birds that make these specific sounds.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I understand, there's something unusual, something, maybe it's because swallows remind us of our previous period in life when we could see them, we could enjoy nature more, the time, if it was written during the war, the time before the war started. Or maybe because something that's the sounds of the war are also very much like the sounds produced by swallows.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, the swallows are mentioned in the past tense, and starling is mentioned
yes,
in the present.
Yeah.
So there's some sort of relationship that's...
Yes, there is a relationship. So you may look at it, well, literally. So we have the bird starlings, we have the bird swallows, and many people can't really distinguish them. Well, they're really different birds, and swallows have long tails and starlings have very short tails. But in general, if you don't look closely, you may think they're really similar, one hand. But then we know that swallows migrate, they go away for winter. So maybe that's what he means, but then starlings migrate too, they move for winter as well. So we have star in starling. In that sense, starling is connected to death because it shakes the bow of life and makes people drop from it. Yeah, again, why do people drop down, damsons, people? And not because it's their time, even though it is their time, but because there's the starling who shakes the bow. Again, shaking is interfering or forcing or nudging, at least. And starling is, again, related to stars, starlight, night, as opposed to the sun, which is kind and which is only touching, not shaking, touching. The starling shakes it. Whistling, what once swallows sang. So the starling is whistling, the swallows were singing. So I guess swallows are more more related to a house, more related to people, and the starlings are kind of more wild, maybe. But an interesting thing is that very often the starlings take over swallows' nests. They can kill baby swallows and occupy the nest.
Okay.
So maybe in that sense, if you think about war, then we have two sides, and one side is trying to occupy the other side.
Yes.
And make them moving. Maybe that is. Maybe it's again. He says that it's the end of the year, and there's some last starling, and the swallows have already gone. Or maybe he means starling is a cosmic bird, and the swallow is a bird of this reality. Maybe. So it all depends on the context, on how we decide to look at it. Because the sun, the snow, the starling shaking the bough, swallows, it can be just normal images, just normal birds, normal weather, something. But at the same time, they do have that more metaphorical sense to them. And again, it's not really apparent, not that obvious, so you never know, maybe you're just reading too much into it. But what we do have is a sense of death, of change. So the last left plums are falling, dropping down. Dropping down is like dying. We have the starling in the place of the swallows, so the swallows have gone. Again, they're not here. In that sense, they are dead, in the sense that they're not in that reality. Yeah, we do have it. We have some sense of violence. We have storm, we have shaking. But at the same time, we have this peaceful background, because he's not crazy about it. He says, no, it's fair, it's kind, it's part of nature, it's beautiful. Mm-hmm.
A technical thing.
Mm-hmm.
Can we stop for a moment? Because I think my computer needs some food.
No problem.
Some electricity, so I'll just get my charger and I'll be back. Is it okay?
No problem. Yeah, so if you think about swallows or starlings, again, what you may notice, what you may pay attention to is, again, they come in flocks, same as flies, come in big numbers. You don't really see one starling, one swallow, because they live in flocks. So again, it's like people. So again, he's like, I'm not talking about myself, I'm not talking about one person, I'm talking about all of us, because we are a flock of people, birds of feather, we fly together, we're all in it.
And we are also killed in large numbers, like in sort of, we're killed in flocks.
Yeah. But I have not forgot that there is nothing too. So we start with nothing. There's nothing. And when we kind of play around it, we change it. There's nothing like the sun. And now we repeat it. I have not forgot that there is nothing too. So again, what he really says, there is nothing. And then he turns the message like, no, it's not what I mean to say. I don't mean to say that there is nothing. I just mean to say there is nothing like the sun. But what he does say, what we see here, there is nothing. And how do we feel about it? What kind of nothing is it? There is nothing. How do we feel about it?
Well, we might say that if we take this 1.5 line, but I have not forgot that there is nothing to, then the idea is that there's nothing but the war, or maybe because he never mentions the war in this poem, there is this reality, the reality of war, the reality that we live in is nothing as compared to some reality that is much more important, that keeps looking upwards, that keeps looking onto the sun, or that wants to climb the mountains to be closer to the sun. So that's the real reality. I remember there was another. Well, he was not a poet, he was a writer, a prose writer, who left his memoirs while a soldier during the First World War. And he remembers, during grief, his time as a soldier, and a sort of realization coming to him one day, just when the First World War was quite close to an end, that this reality, the reality he sees around him, is nothing as compared to the spiritual. Well, he says it in a much more beautiful way. I'm, of course, simplifying things a lot, but the idea was that there's something related, something spiritual is real, while all the terrifying things that were happening around him were nothing but a sort of, maybe an illusion even, as compared to this spiritual reality.
And not just terrifying, but the beautiful things as well. So they are here, we enjoy them or we hate them, it doesn't matter. And we may be sorry to part with them, but we... and it may be hard to remember. It's easy to forget the truth here, but I have not forgotten there is nothing. So we have nice things which we are sorry to let go, and we have horrible things which, kind of, again, catch our attention, and we take them very seriously. But I have not forgotten there is nothing. And there is nothing like the sun. And then there's nothing too, like March is sun, like April's or July's or June's or May's or January's or February's great days. August, September, October and December have equal days, all different from November. So again, we have our kind of perspective, we have our situation, and we tend to kind of lock on it and only see that situation. Yeah, like, oh, I have problems here, or I'm happy there, and we focus all our attention on it, and we forget about the bigger picture, we forget about other possible situations, possibilities. So here we are brought back to the bigger picture. So November is here, November is hard, November is beautiful, November is dreadful, maybe. Although he is very peaceful about it. We don't have anything to make us fear or angry. But he says, okay, but we don't have to focus on just November. The year dies, but the year is big. And so he doesn't just say there's nothing to like sun in other months. He names every month. Why, again? Why would he name every single month of the year?
To remind himself and us that each of the months, each of the period in our lives are different to the extent that we appreciate each and every of them. And maybe he begins by saying something about March, which marks the start of spring. Again, with the comparison we made between the seasons and the periods in human life, spring is sort of young adulthood or something.
Yeah, well, that's
okay.
That's
Something. Yeah. So the idea is that I've seen March's sun. I've seen the sun in April. I've seen the sun during these summer months, and there was life. There was enough of life. There had already been enough of life, and I have benefited from it in the sense that I took something from life. And as I believe a Russian poet has said, once something has been taken, something has been claimed by life, no fate can deprive us of it. So there was something in my life that I should be grateful for, and if I only remember November now, I should have forgotten about all these good things, good people, good birds I've seen, I've met, I admired. Maybe that's the idea.
Maybe. Maybe now we finally see different faces, because before we were seeing more like flocks or generalizations. Now we have not just soldiers, but this one is March, this one is April, this one is July. Maybe it really is just to remind us not to focus on one month, to say that each period, each aspect has its name, has its face. He's not chronological here. He says April, then July, then June, then May, then January. So again, we leave the linearity. We don't care about being logical or linear. Maybe August, September, October, and December. So again, in this strange way, we start with March, we end with December. Have equal days, all different from November. No day of any month, I have said, or if I could live long enough, should say. So again, idea of death. If I could live long enough, should say. So it's kind of a little bit, might be a little bit creepy, that line. If I could live long enough, so I can't live long enough. If he says if I could live, means he can't. should say. There's nothing, again, he says, there's nothing like the sun that shines today. Again, he says, it doesn't matter if it's May or if it's November, it's today. You're alive today. You don't have to wait for November to enjoy the sun. You don't have to wait for death to come knocking on your door to start enjoying life, appreciating what you have. Yeah.
And then you, there's this precious little moment that happens between the past and the future, which is now, and some people say quite natural that you can't really catch what the present is, because the moment you catch it, it's already the past.
Well, maybe you don't need to catch it, and maybe you just need to be in it.
Yes.
Enjoy or not enjoy doesn't matter. Be in present. Yeah. It's not difficult. Well, it may be difficult, but it's not impossible. If you do something like fencing, for instance, or somewhere where you need to be aware, you can't be in the past like, oh, my partner had been there a second ago, he's not there now. Or you can't think, what am I going to do next second, because there is no next second. You can't plan anything. You flow with it, you respond to it.
And it's
You're
interesting
fencing with life.
Yeah, there's no second, no next second, or even smaller unit of time. And as we look back, there's no past. It disappears. So then this quite nicely explains these repeating lines. There's nothing, because there's really nothing. And yet there is the sun that shines now.
Yeah. Oh, there is past, there is future, and there is no past, there is no future. Again, we don't have to fix ourselves. We don't have to say, I only believe that there is past and there is future, or I only believe there is no past and there is no future. Because as you enter more like quantum physics, then both are true. There is and there isn't. They do not contradict. Or they coexist. The possibilities. Or there is past. There is one past, there are many versions of the past, there is future, there is no future, there are different versions of future. They can coexist, there's no problem. Again, as long as we stop making ourselves fixed and linear. As long as we don't insist on July coming after June, here it can come after April. No problem. There's nothing like the sun that shines today. There's nothing like the sun till we are dead. So if I could live long enough, we have the word live, at the same time idea of death, because I can't live long enough in that line. And like you said, the first line and the last line, that's where we have the word die. The year dies and then we are dead. There's nothing like the sun till we are dead. And again, the question is, then what? Not what. So again, light or spirit or God, or just life force. Nothing like the sun that shines today. Yeah, we're alive, and that's great, that's the most important. Battles, there's nothing like the sun till we are dead, because it touches all except snow. So what happens when we are dead? Is there something better than the sun? when we are dead? Is there no sun when we are dead? Is there some completely different paradigm when we are dead?
Or maybe there's nothing.
Well, it's up to you. So again, that last line alone could be a subject to a long conversation, but maybe it's better not trying to, again, make it linear and put it in words which are not going to work anyway. But what you're supposed to do here is to feel it. Feel nothing, feel the sun, and feel death, and feel the connection between the three of them. How they are not somewhere in the poem, how they're inside you. We have the nothing side, no thing. We have the sun, which is power of life, or spirit, you may say. And we have death, which only makes sense in relation to life force. It makes no sense in relation to the no thing side. Yeah, and how they interact, and how do we feel about it.
Yes.
And how there are those, let's say, patterns, how we are not, again, separate, how the year dies and comes back again, plums die and come back again, and we die, and what then? Do we come back again? Possibly, probably, might be.
Might be indeed.
So there's nothing, he repeats it 4 times, in the first line and in the middle, and then twice in the end. So he basically repeats the message so we remember it. There's nothing like the sun that shines today till we are dead, as the year dies, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
More comments?
No.
So if we look at the technical side, at the structure, again, it's nice, it's all rhyming, dies and flies, soul and snow, and town and now, begun, what's begun? I don't know, some of them rhyme, some of them don't rhyme. Town, now, bow, down, what forgot. Sun and begun. That's a very long way to rhyme. Sun and begun, if you can see it. May's, days, December, November, said, dead, say today. So the rhyme isn't linear either. Again, same as when he talks about months, and April, and July, then May, then January. So the rhyme isn't regular either. Again, he doesn't try to show off and say, look, I can rhyme nicely in some clever pattern. It rhymes as it rhymes. Again, you can't plan it, you can't expect it. You can't say, now I'll expect a rhyme here or there. So you can have begun and you think, it's never going to rhyme. And then you have sun somewhere down there, apparently. And of course the last line kind of rhymes with the first line, dies, dead. And we have a personal perspective again. It's not just something abstract. You have I have said, or if I could live long enough, should say. So we have the narrator through the poem. He's looking at it, and You can't really say how much is he involved in it, but these two lines, if I could live long enough, should say that line changes the perspective, shows that he's not just an observer, he's in it. He speaks from his personal experience, and that is his message from the border. Okay, anything else?
No.
Okay, then we